Yep, you're live.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our Embracing Technology webinar. This webinar was sponsored by the Central Bank of the Bahamas, Sun Oil, Focal, and Doctors Hospital, and it is presented by the TCL Group. So my name is DRC Rahming Jr., and I am the Chief Technology Officer at a financial technology firm called ArrowACX. And today we're going to try and make this as interactive as possible and as real as possible. So please use the Q&A box and we will make sure to answer some of those questions for you. So with all that being said, let me introduce our guests. Joining us today is Dr. Charles Digges, President of Doctors Hospital, and he's here to talk about artificial intelligence. We also have Mr. Peter Bridgewater, CEO of Open Systems Technologies International, and he will speak to us about cybersecurity and document management. And then also we have Mr. Donovan Moxey, President and CEO of Mobile Assist, and that's a digital payments platform. So a lot of different type of technology and use cases, and a lot of different business and industry spaces. So you're going to get a nice mix from a lot of experts. So let's start with you, Ms. Dr. Digges. Can you please explain to us what you guys at Doctors Hospital are doing with artificial intelligence?
Great. So Darcy, let me first say thank you very much for inviting myself and Doctors Hospital into the conversation. And it's very welcome to have the opportunity to have this conversation with both Peter and Donovan. So jumping right in, artificial intelligence is a part of a whole slew of emerging and developing technologies. And it importantly is a part of a broader conversation because it usually does not sit out there by itself. Artificial intelligence or machine learning has become, or machine intelligence has become hugely important in the healthcare space because it facilitates our accurate decision making in so many instances. It mitigates errors, and it also enables us to get to decisions by working through a huge amount of data much more efficiently. And so we like to approach artificial intelligence as one of a number of emerging technology tools that we use, and we'll speak to some examples as we go. But I think importantly, to open the conversation, artificial intelligence is best understood as machine learning, machine intelligence to assist in how we process data.
So yes, we're gonna go dive deeper into everything you just said as the conversation goes on. But Mr. Bridgewater, you are in a B2B space. Please turn off your audio, whoever that is. Mr. Bridgewater, you are in a B2B space. Why don't you tell us what Open Systems does and how it helps with cybersecurity and document management?
Yes, good afternoon, Darcy, and good afternoon, audience. It's certainly a pleasure to be on this webinar. Our company, Open Systems Technologies International, has been providing electronic document management and business continuity solutions here in the Bahamas for the past 18 years. And the question is, for some, is what is document management? Well, document management or enterprise content management is a technology that can be used to capture, store, retrieve, and archive documents electronically. All right, it provides security for authorized access to the documents by the users. It enables businesses and organizations to improve efficiency and productivity. And most importantly of all, it's one of those tools that can enable the ease of doing business. And we also provide cybersecurity solutions. And cybersecurity is so important now, especially in the remote working area since COVID-19. And I'll talk a little bit about how the benefits of cybersecurity can benefit companies as well as individuals.
Yeah, so we look forward to having a great discussion about how digitization of business processes can improve all of the things that you just said. And Mr. Moxey, Mr. Moxie is Mobile Assist is an online platform that. Why don't you explain to the audience what it is that Mobile Assist does and how you guys add value?
Yes, definitely. So Mobile Assist, we've been around as a corporate entity for almost 10 years now. We started in the SMS space, but we expanded that to include mobile payments platforms and mobile services. So the Mobile Assist platform has been around and been in development for the last 4 to 5 years. Like some of our other service providers in the market, we received a license from the central bank last year, fourth quarter of last year. And so we were licensed to essentially offer a digital wallet. And so when you look at what we offer in the broader scheme of things, and you think about the way the world is going, really the whole idea of being able to process various digital payments is extremely important, and that's the trend. When you think about Bitcoin, when you think about, well, not just Bitcoin, but cryptocurrencies, when you think about other stores of value, the central bank has digitized the Bahamian currency. You have to have a platform or a way in which these particular forms of value can be stored and also can be utilized. But what Mobile Assist has done is we've built a platform to allow for that. So when you look at engagement between businesses and consumers, engagement between business and business, and even consumer to consumer, these types of new next generation platform offer the ability for commerce to be conducted in a very seamless way. And so when you think of a mobile wallet, you think of not just storing your debit or your credit cards, but you have to think of storing those kinds of forms of value. You also think of storing cryptocurrencies, you think of storing digital currencies, you think of storing what I would say merchant forms of value. For instance, a lot of us shop at certain stores and we earn certain points. Well, now when you look at a digital wallet, you can hold all of that store of value. And when it comes to exchanging that store of value for a good or service, platforms like Mobile Assist allow you to do that.
Yeah, and it's so like I said earlier, for the viewers that are just joining us, technology is these gentlemen are experts, many years in all of their fields, and they have a lot of real world applications of actually using technology to solve problems. So let's start with for the next question. Oh, that's my timer. See, I'm doing my job as moderator. So, Mr. Bridgewater, what issues or problems does document management solve, and what opportunities do businesses have by implementing such a solution?
Well, when we look at document management, some of the issues that it solves is most businesses lose files. There's lost files, misplaced files. All of this impact the ease of doing business. And so what document management enables you to do is to automate business processes. And by sharing and information electronically, it improves internally the productivity, the efficiency of the organization, because now that information is electronic. On the other hand, as well, by using document management along with automation and digital signatures, it now enables the company or the organization to sign documents without having to print them. You know, it's a task. You prepare a letter and then you have to print it and then you sign it and then you scan it and send it out again. But what we've been doing is using digital signatures, and even in a secure way. So if I sent a letter to a customer and I need their signature, I forward that to them electronically. They receive it. They get a code back from my vendor, from the digital signature provider, directly to their phone, so that we know that they're the persons that are receiving that particular document. They will receive an email, and along with that code, they then are able to access that document and sign it electronically.
You've been in this business for 18 years now?
Yes, I mean, actually, next year will make 20 years.
Next year will make 20 years.
20 years since we've been providing document management and business continuity solutions.
With the next minute, could you maybe walk us through one of the implementations that you did where you did that for a client?
Well, one of the implementations that we did for One of the insurance companies is we work with them to implement a document management solution, automate a number of the various departments, and they now have over 100 million pages of information digitized. And so you know what the task is to go and find a file or a document. And here it is now in 100 million pages. You can find that document in seconds. All
Most
right.
people couldn't find documents on their desk.
Right.
So, 100 million pages is impossible
Yeah.
to do it the old way.
That's just a part of our success story.
Mhm.
We've done that in government, where we've worked with a number of government agencies to digitize over 40, 50 years of documents, and they have access to access to those documents readily. And we see that in those agencies where we've implemented this, we've seen the improvement in terms of the efficiency, in terms of accessing information in those
Great.
key government areas.
Great, great. Mr. Moxie, you're solving a different type of problem with your payment systems and platforms. Could you go explain what it is, the value that you're adding to your end users?
Yeah, correct. So what we offer is we're a fintech company offering mobile payments as part of an integrated platform. So when you look at the way the world is trending and going now, I mean, everything is moving towards mobile platform, mobile engagement. Basically, if you look at it, folks who have mobile phones, their phones are with them 98% of the time. So they do their communications, they do a lot of their commerce, everything
I'm a
is there.
millennial, so yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
exactly. And most of us know if you happen to leave the house and you find that your mobile phone isn't with you in your car, 99% of us turn right around and go home and get it.
It's like
And so
chopping
when
off
you
your arm. Yeah.
Yes. So when you look at how commerce is being done, engagement is being done, it's all through the mobile device. And when you look at what it takes to develop a application for a mobile platform, that tends to be extremely expensive undertaking. And so when you ask a small to medium-sized business to make that investment, a lot of people don't know where to start. And so what we've done is we've created a platform that can get people up and running and offer a mobile store, bill payment, event ticketing, you name it, anything that's transactional, literally we can offer that in a matter of hours. And so when you're a business, you focus on your core competency, whether that's delivering a particular service, selling a product. You don't want to get into the technology creation business. And so what we've done for our customers is we've done all the technology heavy lifting. And so we've developed a platform that's compatible with the iOS operating system, compatible with Google Play. We're also making integrations for web applications as well and websites. And so now what you then do as a business is you make those decisions that are applicable to what your particular use case is. So whether or not you want to set up a mobile store, you want to do bill payment, scan and pay at the point of the register, we're providing those solutions to you. And so just go ahead.
So I'm a business person. Walk me through what that process would be like.
Great,
Say I
perfect.
own a dress shop
Okay, excellent.
or a fashion shop.
Excellent. So there's a couple of things here. Let's say you want to accept payments, digital payments at the register. And so you would then utilize a solution we have called scan and pay. And what we do for you as a merchant is we issue you a unique QR code, and that QR code sits at your register. And so when a customer comes in who has the mobile assist platform in our wallet, they want to pay you, they simply take out their phone, they hit the scan and pay button, it opens up their camera, they scan your QR code, your account comes up, they pay you and complete the transaction. All touchless, all paperless, done literally in a matter of seconds for you as well. So that's one product we have. Again, you're in a dress or a retail environment. You want to offer an online store or an online shopping experience. We can get you up and running with that, with all of your products within 48 hours. Looks just like Amazon, functions in a way where you put all your products, images up there. You put your descriptions, your pricing, your discounts, your codes. You can do pickup and delivery. You can track and manage all of that for you. Now, when you think of a business taking that on as an undertaking, you're looking at literally thousands of dollars involved in development costs and maybe months of time, not to mention probably several weeks to even get an online merchant account and to meet all of the security requirements. But what we do as a platform is we take care of all of that for the customer. And then in a matter of, like I said, days and a couple $100, you're now in business and ready to go.
A lot of value added to the brick and mortar that's looking to find its way into the digital world.
That's exactly right.
So Dr. Digges is in, because he's in healthcare, he's in what's called B2C, business to customer. So he's doing dealing directly with patients. How do you see these artificial intelligence and emerging technologies adding value to patients?
So artificial intelligence in not just the healthcare space, but across industries, the applications are ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And it's good listening to Donovan talk about the platforms and the software in finance. And it's important to appreciate that at the core of the application software sits artificial intelligence, again, assimilating data.
Yes.
When we move into the healthcare space, I think what would be useful for the audience is to appreciate that the wearables that you may purchase to monitor your blood sugar or to monitor your pulse rate or your heart rate, at the core of those wearables would be software that digitizes the data and then processes that data, but also gets into something we call pattern recognition. It tries to determine out of a slew of choices whether you're running a particular number in your blood glucose or whether you're running a particular rhythm in your heart rate that is potentially lethal. And once it determines that, it then sends an output, which either in the case of a glucose monitor may shoot some insulin into your bloodstream, so you have absolutely nothing to do. It's a closed loop. Or in the case of the heart rhythm, it would send a message to you or to your provider. And so a simple example of wearables would then give you the application to the patient, ordinary patient.
And that's so important for patients because all of our bodies are different. So in order to, if you were to just write a simple code with none of the artificial intelligence, or have an application with no artificial intelligence, they might give me, you know, Mr. Bridgewater's level of, you know, we're all different. So you have to be able to individualize it, and that's what you're saying that artificial intelligence can do.
Yeah, and appreciate that whenever the required capacity or capability exceeds what's human, the human efficiency is exceeded, then you want a tool like AI to be able to process a huge amount of data in a short amount of time and come up with interpretations and actions that would defy the capabilities of humans. And so artificial intelligence sometimes is better understood as augmented human intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful that you use the word tool, because a lot of people, when they look at technology, they think of it, they're afraid of it because obviously, you know, it's very specialized. It can be very specialized at a high level, but it's just a tool to make your business or your processes or what you're already doing more efficient. So
that's correct. That's correct.
So when you go on.
Yeah, when you drill down into it, I think the fright comes into how, you know, how exactly is the process of artificial intelligence occurring? That's where the fright occurs. But when you focus more on the what, on the application side, how can it enhance your life or help you to make decisions? Then it starts to get less fearful.
Yes, yes, yes. This is leading into our next section, and I'm going to give the audience some background information, and then I'll ask the questions from that. So technology is a broad word. It covers a lot of different parts for solving a problem. So the four parts are, generally speaking, there's research and development, and that's, for example, the coding, the heavy lifting, hardware, tying that together. Hardware is just the physical parts of technology that you touch. Software is the parts that you don't touch and see, and the melding of that together. Then there's implementation. There's the, so in order to put in a solution or to use technology, you have to do an evaluation of the technology. You have to do, there's some project management skills there. And of course, there's the training that's necessary to actually be able to use this. And then, of course, there's the end use. by the end user. So it has to be practical. It has to solve a real problem. Otherwise, why go through all of this? And usually there's more business processes or organizational processes put around that. And then lastly, there's maintenance. And that's the ongoing back-end work to make sure that this thing is running and runs smoothly for the rest of the time. So let's start with you, Mr. Bridgewater. Which of those four areas does Open Systems come in and help its clients with? And we could talk about all of them or the different parts of them.
Well, actually, what our technology involves and how we could help the end user is actually by all of them, because it enables the business to provide an enhanced level of benefits to the end user, which is their customer. And what it also does is it enables the internal business user, all right, when we look inside the business, to focus on the customer service by not having to search for information. They could access it readily so that they could provide a deeper and a higher level of customer experience to the external customers. And so it improves that area of the business. And then when it comes to training, sometimes, as was mentioned earlier, some persons or companies or organizations are frightened in terms to implement innovative technology like document management. It's been around for years. But however, we come in and we analyze their requirements in terms of looking at their organization, because each business is different. And so we look to see how they can benefit it within their workplace. Okay, and so by providing training, and training is key. Okay, for any technology that you want to implement, you want to ensure that the training goes from the top directly to the bottom, to the users who are going to capture and put the information in. And so you want to ensure that training is across the board to everyone in the organization, because if you don't do that, then you'd have a failed project. All right, and so. Maintenance, on the other hand, is quite important. Microsoft changes there.
Not only that, some people think it's just set and forget, not understanding that the modern subscription model of most technology is if you just set it and forget and you don't pay that bill, you don't pay do the necessary maintenance work, it's gonna break. So what?
And what you just said is true. Some customers tend to feel that paying the maintenance, once the system is implemented, is going to work for the next 20 years. All right. However, Microsoft and other vendors, you're running on their operating systems, they make changes. And so those changes impact the system, the document management system that you're running on. And so you want to ensure that you have a proper maintenance budget so that you can continually update your application. And one of the basic reasons is, or a main reason is, and companies have seen this during COVID-19, they didn't have their systems patched. And so hackers were just out there sitting and waiting. And as soon as they did remote working, hackers took advantage of it, plant ransomware on their machines or on their servers, and then they didn't have the ability to get that information back. And so by maintenance and ensuring that that is done, it protects your system and it protects your organization.
So for people listening at home, remember, I'm sure for business people, you're just hearing cost. Remember that this technology that Mr. Bridgewater implements is about increasing efficiency. So in order to increase the efficiency, there are certain costs, and you have to weigh the balance. I know personally we use one of the solutions that he put in our company, and it's allowed us to work remotely during these COVID times. So while most people's business is stopped, we keep chugging along. So that's worth something to the firm, and you have to put a dollar value to that when you're looking at these technology solutions. Mr. Moxie, you were talking a lot about doing the research and development of your product and how that took 10 years of development, and I'm sure you're still continually developing. That's how development works. Could you talk to people about some of um, the challenges associated with research and development?
Yeah, definitely. So, Mobile Assist, we are a proprietary platform. That means every ounce of code that goes into writing that particular platform, we own and we wrote. And in fact, our technology, our base technology, which is really our architecture, is patent pending. We filed patents with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to protect that technology. And so from our perspective, when we looked at building out Mobile Assist, our goal was to build a platform that can support millions of businesses and tens of millions of users globally. And so when we looked at the architecture in order to do that, we had to make some decisions on that. When we looked at our hosting platform, in order to be able to rapidly do that, we made some decisions on that. And so as a result of it, we have a proprietary patent pending platform, and we're using Amazon Web Services to host everything in the cloud. And so that's very helpful for us from an architecture standpoint. So it allows for scalability.
Could you
quickly go ahead?
Could you talk about, people hear this word, the cloud, being thrown around. Why is it important to be in the cloud versus to have just hardware? I mean, a hard drive sitting in your office.
Yeah, it's a cost and scalability issue. So for instance, for us, we developed Mobile Assist to be a global platform, even though our entry market is the Bahamas. So think about it this way. Whenever you host anything globally, you want to be in strategic sites in order to be able to manage your load or your load balancing with all of your customers and consumers. So if I were to just have a hosting center in the Bahamas, anybody in the world who now hits my platform, they come right to that one point of failure, or that one hosting center in the Bahamas, which makes your platform extremely inefficient. However, if you go with the cloud service providers, they have hosting centers all over the world. They have the ability to detect traffic patterns wherever it is your users are. And they have the ability to replicate your platform in all of those hosting locations. So you get maximum efficiencies, and you get caching and all of the other things that come with that.
And you pay only as you need it.
Yes, and you pay as you need it, and you grow and you can scale. Exactly. So from a scalability standpoint, right now our platform is hosted at the cloud facilities in Virginia right now. But if we need to, and we get spikes in activity in Europe or in Asia or in South America, we can easily have our platform replicated in those areas of the world very, very quickly. It's very difficult and expensive to do that if you are trying to do that yourself. That's just an impossible task today. Very, very impossible.
Yeah, I think every technologist has dabbled in coding at some point in their life, at some level, whether it's a high level code or a lower level machine code and compiler code. And if it's not for you, don't mess with it. It's really it could be really
it's both an art and it's both an art and a science. And I started coding about 20 years ago. I really stick with architecture now. I've got some very, very talented developers who literally can make anything I conceive. And so that's kind of where I stick.
Okay.
But what we did for Mobile Assist is that, recognizing that a lot of consumers don't want to get involved in the code level and the technology level. And as Mr. Bridgewater said, you have multiple operating systems you support. So think about the mobile world. You support the two major operating systems, which is iOS and Google, if you will, as well. Then the next thing you have to look at is there are flavors of each of those operating systems depending on the devices. Then you have various device manufacturers. You have your Samsungs, you have your Hitachis, just any name manufacturing devices, and all of them run a certain flavor. So when you talk about developing a mobile application, you have to be able to maintain and make updates and fixes for all of those different variations. If you're a company focused on selling retail products, you're not going to be able to keep up with that. And again, that's the way the world is going. So that's the value that we bring. We essentially put in place a software as a service model or a subscription-based model. Everybody utilizes whatever parts of the platform that works for them, and that's what you pay for. And as you grow, obviously your subscription grows. But all of the technical aspects, all of the aspects with respect to security and hacking, all those things, we take care of all of that for the customer. So the customer just simply focuses on building their businesses and using the tools that we provide that fits their particular.
Wonderful. And Dr. Digges, the area that we talked a little bit beforehand off air about implementation of some of this artificial intelligence and how that affects the end user at Doctors Hospital. Can you dive in and walk us through one of them that you did? You were telling me that your Doctors Hospital is the only Um,
My hospital with electronic health record.
that's right. That's right. And that's amazing.
So that it's hugely important that the transformation of data into the digital form occurs. And the electronic health record is just one example of that. It is quite an undertaking, and that's a separate story unto itself on how it took us about 2 to 3 years to complete that implementation. But what that does is now it prepares us to leverage the information and leverage the data. For example, when we want to determine, is a patient allergic to a particular medication, we can actually use the electronic health record and the applications available within that to sift through and tell us whether that patient's current medications have any inconsistencies, or are we considering using a medication that that patient may be allergic to real time? And you get an immediate block then to the physician prescribing the medication. And real time is what you want. That's the utility of the application.
Yes, modern technology has to be real time.
Absolutely. It's hugely important to appreciate that. As the provider, the physician, goes about providing patient care, you almost want something like a bug in their ear that tells them this is consistent with standard, this is more likely to create an adverse event, so you know whether you should go left or go right. So the job of the software, the job of the electronic health record is to allow whatever interfacing software we introduce to assist the physicians in making decisions. And obviously this then means that they have immediate access to a repository, huge repositories of information, and they can use this in making clinical decisions. So clinical decision support, medication reconciliation, these are a couple examples of utilizing the electronic health record and the add-on software to make the patient experience safe.
Yeah, because ultimately your goal is to make sure that medicine is more consistent, so that you don't have any of the bad aspects of medicine, as well as more efficient, so that people can ultimately, that's going to end with the bottom line of Doctors Hospital going up, because you're a businessman too. You're not just doing this for fun.
all of the above. So
yes.
it's a good point. It's a good point you made. Making sure that the patient care experience is correct, but also making sure that we don't cause any unnecessary or undue harm to patients. We leverage, again, the software in the electronic health record to assist us with that.
Yes. For is a little plug for those of us just joining us, I'm with Dr. Charles Digges, who is the president of Doctors Hospital. I'm also Peter Bridgewater, CEO of Open Systems, and Donovan Moxey, president and CEO of Mobile Assist. Our sponsors for this event are the Central Bank of the Bahamas, Sun Oil, Focal, Doctors Hospital, and this is presented by the TCL Group. So we're having a wonderful conversation about practical use of technologists with some great technologists that have been doing technology and technology implementations for many years, decades even. And these are practical men solving practical problems. So this is not a conversation about the computer sitting on the desk. This is about using technology to solve problems, and how you and your businesses or your organizations can use that and leverage some of their knowledge in your own business. So what are some of the capital that's required to implement solutions like this? And by capital, I mean human capital. So that's skills, talent, economic capital. That's finances, infrastructure, as well as social capital. And Mr. Moxey, can you start with that?
Yeah, yes, definitely. When it comes to software development, especially a platform, what we built for Mobile Assist, the investment in the seven figures. In fact, that's where we are today in terms of what's been invested, if you will, as well. And when you talk about software platforms, you're continuing developing, you're continuing evolving. And so that investment capital is significant. When you look at skill sets, obviously you need individuals that are skilled software developers, software architects, software security, network infrastructure security personnel. That's extremely important as well, having those skills on board. And then also, when you run your operations, there are standard skill sets that you need in running a software company. You need people that are operational. You need folks that are sales and marketing oriented. And obviously you need the executive management doing it. Software is a very tough business to be in. I mean, it's one of those things where you invest heavily in building a platform, building a product. And then what you do is you hope that you've made good decisions about what the market wants. Now, obviously, for a number of folks who are in this business, you develop methodologies such as agile software methodology. You develop methodologies in terms of how you architecture your platform so you can move modules in and out. And so that minimizes the risk associated with making these kinds of investments. Way back when, you had folks that developed what they call the waterfall method of software development, where you agreed on what you were doing. That's all you built. And then when it was finished, you came out of the workshop and said, here it is. And you hope and prayed that you made good decisions.
For people at home, these are modern project management techniques. So,
right.
And they've really come out of the coding software world, and now we're starting to see them everywhere. So go on.
So we take an agile approach where you build a structure and you build modules around it, and you can quickly react to the market, if you will, as well. Building what's called the minimum viable product, and there's a cycle that goes into all of that. And so nowadays, given how quickly technology changes and the needs of the market tends to evolve, you want to create a certain degree of flexibility. So we spend a lot of time in our architecture and understanding what we would do as a base architecture, but a lot more time also in terms of how we modularize what we do, so we can rapidly respond using these agile methods to the needs of the marketplace. And so that minimizes our risk profile as a software company. So
once again, for people at home, if you are not into, if you could barely understand what Mr. Moxie was saying just now, do not necessarily mess with the implementation. Not the implementation, the development. Development is hard. That's really where people go to school for, and they study those things. It's better to focus on the practical use and the later stages in technology, and save the development for people like Mr. Moxie there.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up really quickly. I'm glad you brought that up
because you'll waste a ton of money chasing something that you don't understand.
Yeah, and this is something that we try to tell a lot of customers, and that's why our focus is small to medium-sized businesses, because you'll meet your larger size enterprise, and the first thing they'll say is, oh, we could build that. But in my mind all the time is, but that's not your core business. That's not your core competency. I know the road you're going down, but that's okay. Sometimes you let people go down those roads and they make those decisions. But our focus has always been,
pain is the best.
We'll do the heavy lifting. That's true. We'll do the heavy lifting. We'll understand what the market needs, and we can adjust to a customer's specific needs, how we've architected this. But as far as our core competency, it's really the software development, the technology development, and providing the solutions. And so for us, it's always understanding a customer's problem and us delivering then to them a solution that helps them solve that problem, because what they want to do is grow their business, their core competency. So that's where we focus. So
Mr. Bridgewater, continuing with this conversation, what is required of your B2B customers? Because you work with businesses in implementing solutions such as this. What is the human capital, economic capital, infrastructure? And then by social capital, I kind of mean the environment, the culture of the organization that needs to be built around technology to get it to work.
Well, when we take this into consideration, or the implementation at one of our customers into consideration, and we talk about these things, when we talk about the human capital, we try to show that the success of the implementation and the use of the technology is very important. And so the human capital is key, all right? And so we try to indicate that it includes everyone in terms of that training. And so the human capital is very important in terms of that. When we look at the economic capital, we indicate to businesses, I think that financial controllers, when they review the budgets for their organizations, realize that at least 10% of the company's revenue is normally spent on technology or investing in the finance of implementation and maintenance of technology in the organization. And so the economical benefits will
Yes.
depend basically on that capital that they invest and the effort that they take to develop and make the businesses and the organizations resilient in what we call this global marketplace. And we see that is very true today when we look at COVID-19. Those businesses that invested in technology, invested the economic capital in technology, it's almost as business as usual. Okay, the pandemic is there, but in terms of being able to work continually, it's because of their investment, they're able to do that. All right.
Even pre COVID-19 and this pandemic, the kinds of systems that you implement produce efficiencies that allow small organizations to compete with big ones.
Yeah.
So as he said, for all of the financial controllers and operations managers out there, you need, or in general managers, people, decision makers who are thinking about putting in a technological solution, you have to say, what is our core competence, as Mr. Moxie was saying earlier, what is our core competency and what technology do I need so that I can get rid of some of this administrative work and just focus on what I'm good at, which is what the sign on the door says that I do.
And just to add to that, today's businesses in post-COVID-19 or this new economy or new normal, they will need to probably invest more in cloud technologies, just like Mr. Moxie indicated, Donovan mentioned, enterprise content management, document management solutions, software platforms, so that their business could be relevant and continue to be in existence.
Yes, and all of those for people at home or people working from home, I should say. All of those are just tools to solve different business problems. They're not. No one tool is a one size fits all for anything. And so, if you look at it like, I know many people growing up would maybe their dad had a toolbox. You have a hammer, you use the hammer for nails. You have a screwdriver, you use a screwdriver for screws. You don't take the hammer to the screwdriver, to the screw, and expect it to work. So start to think of technology in that way, and it will relieve a lot of the stress and anxiety associated with some of these issues. Dr. Digges, what is the capital that was required to affect the changes in your organization? Once again, capital is human capital, economic capital, infrastructure, and social capital, meaning the environment.
Yeah, the capital was and is ongoing, significant, as Donovan indicated, for us to create the complete digitization of the medical data. That required some pre-implementation, implementation, and ongoing maintenance, updates, activities, which continue to cost us. And so the one thing that we learned in that expense is to focus a little more on what is the problem that we're trying to solve? What is the issue? What are the challenges? What exactly is this tool meant to do? Because there are innumerable numbers of choices. In fact, we're at the place right now as we look at the current template that we have, and we have to make a decision about whether we continue with that or whether we make a change out. And that change out, again, is in the 7-digit space. So that's going to be a fairly expensive exercise. The other part of the challenge. So once you spend a lot of time looking at the question, get your question right. What is the problem that's intended to be solved? So to the example that you made, when you go into that toolkit that you spoke to, you're going to look for a screwdriver and not a hammer. Because if you start the exercise looking in a toolkit, then you're going to be just glossy-eyed on the variety of choices, and you're likely to pick what either looks good, sounds good, or is cheap.
The chainsaw? You're gonna get the chainsaw for the screw.
Exactly. And the value and the relevance is going to be questioned. It's not going to fit, which is a good segue into the challenge then with the end user. You need to remember to involve the end user right up front. And that's a lot of the pre-implementation exercise, because apart from the fear, it is also important to make sure that they understand the value that this digital platform is going to bring to their normal workflow, their normal work function. And now you have to translate what they normally do into a digital result. That then is a lot of the heavy lifting, and a lot of the anxieties, for example, occur because individuals have become very comfortable doing what they do, and now you're bringing the digital solution to them. So you can anticipate that that's a lot of resistance. That's 3 years actually in our experience, 3 to 4 years of just resistance, but we had to keep hammering away until the end users realized that a lot of their recurring problems were being solved by digitization. So you have to be fairly patient with it, understand the challenges that your end users are going to have, stay the course. The implementation does bring within the tool a lot of guidance about how to do what you normally do. So suddenly you don't have to try to remember what it is that I need to document. You have amazing templates that sit in front of you and you simply fill in the gaps. So the value is unquestioned, but I'm going to echo my original point, which is go back to the question, the problem, the challenge, the issue. Make sure you have the right question and then seek the solution that's best to answer either that question or that problem.
And to add to what Dr. Diggis is saying, at the end of all of this, you see it on the bottom line. So why go through all of this? Because it's worth it on the end. You're going to see those efficiencies. The customers are going to be happier. Your employees are going to be happier because their jobs are easier. They can focus on really their core competencies instead of administrative stuff. And everybody, it's win-win. But you have to do it right.
Yeah,
you have to do it right.
It is a significant capital investment, but on the output side, you will realize value in your ability to scale, because some of the challenges that you will have if you don't move into the digital space, if you don't embrace the applications with AI to enhance some of your decisions, then you're not going to be able to scale.
Right. Wonderful. I have a question someone wrote in where I'm going to just take it briefly because we're on time. It says, this is from RD. As a company, do you recommend an independent consultant / project manager to assist in the evaluation of needs, to assist in assessing? So basically, are you, Roscoe Dames, are you, should you get a consultant, a professional to come in and do an evaluation? Let's start with you, Mr. Bridgewater, and then we'll go to you, Mr. Moxie.
Well, I mean, that is an option that some businesses do take. They do hire consultants to look at their issues or their problems in terms of the technology that they want to solve. But that's a cost, and so if that's not budgeted, then it could be an exorbitant charge to the organization or the company. What we do is we provide that service as a certified document imaging architect. We come in and do a walkthrough the organization. We see how they not only just handle paper, but their business processes, and see how sometimes they are disjointed. And so that's a part of our process in terms of working with our customers so that they can maximize their budget dollars in terms of embracing technology like enterprise content management.
And in your context, Mr. Moxie, can you speak a little bit about that consultation?
Yeah, basically, I think it depends on the size and complexity of the problem, and it depends on your approach to solving that problem. So for us, one of the things I recommend, and this goes back to what Dr. Diggis mentioned earlier, what problem are you trying to solve? And people in the executive wing or people who are part of operations, they clearly understand their problems that they have at the organizational level. And I think the first step really is identifying what those problems are. And really, a consultant shouldn't have to come in and tell you identify your problems. Now, the question is going to be picking the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when a consultant can come into play. So there's two ways you can approach that. I know for us at Mobile Assist, we're more of solution sellers. So we don't turn around and just sell you something and then that we think you want. We try to understand clearly what your needs are, and then we essentially tailor a solution for that particular need. But I think articulating the problem starts with the customer, and no consultant should be able to come in and tell you what your actual pain points are. You should recognize that as the business owner, as the executive team. Now, helping you pick the right solution, depending on the complexity of the problem you're facing, where consulting comes into play. And even if you deal with vendors who are solution sellers, rather than just selling you a particular product, then that's who you want to highlight. So a good solution vendor will come in and say, okay, what's your problem? And then they will now tailor a solution particular for that problem. And then they will again go ahead and tell you what that cost would be for implementation. At that point in time, depending on the numbers, that's when the company can come in and say, okay, let me do a sanity check on what this vendor is telling me, whether or not they're trying to just rob me blind, or they're giving me truly what the cost of the solution is. So that's the approach that I typically ask as businesses to take in all of this.
And if I can add to that, what Donovan indicated is that's one of the reasons why Open Systems Technology partner with a number of different solution providers in enterprise content management. So we can address the issue for the mom and pop shop. We could address the issue for the small to medium sized businesses that are of a certain size. And so we look at as just like Donovan indicated, is looking at that problem. All right. And there's a different type of technology that you could, or solution that you could utilize to address that problem so that the customer can still benefit and get a win-win in terms of using the solutions that you provide, like the enterprise content document management solutions that we offer.
So once again, for people at home, remember, you have to remember the context in which these gentlemen are speaking about this problem. For Mr. Moxie, it's with Mobile Assist, it's payments and merchant services. And for Mr. Bridgewater, it's document management, cybersecurity. They are very different fields. If you talk to one about the other, you will, their expertise. Remember, technology is not all one size fits all. It's about finding the tools that that fit the problem at hand. Dr. Digges, you wanted to add something to that?
So yeah, it's a great question about consultants and experts, and I echo the commentary already made. You need to be very careful, though, that your consultants and experts spend valuable time with you on obtaining clarity about what your issues are prior to you making a decision. That is true. But in our experience, what we've found to be of great value is user groups. And it's just like in any other space. If somebody has already bought the service or the product and they have an experience with it, spend some time with them. They are probably the best persons to tell you about the pearls and the pitfalls, as opposed to spending an inordinate amount of time with consultants. Consultants can walk you through. They can certainly navigate you away from, but they also bring the experience of that you can also obtain, usually free of charge, from a user group.
There you go. So elephant in the room with technology. How is this going to affect jobs for people that are scared that it's going to replace them somehow?
Yeah, one of the things here as well, let me tackle that as well. One of the things that the world or person should not be afraid of evolving. You know, I'm not a young guy, but I'm not very, very old. But I could remember the time when we didn't even have color television, it was all black and white. And times when rotary phones. All of these things are evolved. And so what folks need to understand in my mind is that you have to continually develop your skill set. If you're not continually learning, then you're pretty much stuck. I mean, the first time I saw a keyboard of any type was on an old IBM typewriter. Now, if you try to find one of those things, it essentially doesn't exist except in a museum. But again, there's a typewriter or there's a keyboard on a computer screen. So there's skills that translate. And so I remain open-minded in terms of their skill development. Then the world is not going to pass you by. You're going to keep up. with all of this. I mean, think about smartphones. Smartphones really took off, what, maybe 15 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. Prior to that, you had the flip phones. Now you can do everything that you can imagine on these particular devices. So skill sets evolve all the time. If you look at something as simple as email or writing a letter, I remember back 15, 20, maybe 30 years ago, all of the executives had their own secretary. Secretary typed up all of your letters, sent everything through, mimeograph machines, the whole thing. Now most executives sit and write those things out themselves and hit the send button. So these are skill sets that have been developed over time. And so to me, technology should be embraced. It's nothing to be afraid of. And it's just another learning exercise. And so long as you keep an open minded about learning things that are new and always broadening your skill set, then you should have no issues with embracing new technologies.
Yeah, and to speak to secretaries, the secretary function didn't go away. It just became more efficient. So instead of contacting 5 people a day, they can contact now 50 with the right tools. So that's something to keep in mind. Mr. Bridgewater, in your context, could you talk about how document management systems affect jobs
Well,
implemented it?
but I always say that electronic document management is a great job creation opportunity. There's probably as much paper in the world or in the Bahamas as sand on the sea. And so
There's a
this
lot of
gives
paperwork.
this gives us an opportunity to create jobs for backfile conversion because businesses need that information in the files to be able to access very quickly. And so when we look at the digital transformation and going digital, without digitizing the back office and those documents and files, you wouldn't be able to respond readily to inquiries or to improve the ease of doing business. And so when we look at when we do projects, we have to hire additional staff. We have a number of projects on the drawing board since COVID-19, and so it's going to require additional resources. And so I've always say to companies because sometimes they feel like well, if I implement a document management system, I'm going to reduce staff and it also impacts the implementation because persons within the organization says, well, I don't want to lose my job. But what we say to the employer and to the users of the technology is while we do this digitization, what it enables the business to do is to be able to utilize those resources in different areas of the business so that the business can continue. And what we have seen based on the success stories and working with companies here, even government operations, is that it improved the productivity in the organization and it enabled them to then use those resources in different departments to be able to carry on the business to make the whole organization more productive and more efficient.
Because at the end of the day, our businesses are meant to add value to the customer. We're not the more time we can spend on adding and creating that value, and the less time on tedious administrative functions, the more use out of. Well, first of all, the happier everyone is because nobody really likes doing administrative work.
Yeah. So,
Dr. Digges, can you talk about how some of the solutions that you've implemented at Doctors Hospital have added and how that has affected the type of work that people do there?
Sure. So one of the really valuable things is the voice to text, the ability to use software to assist the provider in their documentation obligations. And that frees up a tremendous amount of time when you're looking at the typing capability of a number of providers. So, voice to text has been a huge free up of time that they can spend otherwise in conversations with patients, with relatives about really important things that matter in the healthcare process, as opposed to being bogged down in the documentation, the typing.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all know doctors' handwriting is not very good. So it's no, but in all seriousness, it's that amount of time saved, whether it's 5-10 minutes of time, when you add that up over one provider, which is a doctor or a nurse, day, and you times that by 365, is so much more productivity, and so much more of the actual real work that people signed up and to do.
Yeah, exactly. And as you use predictive text in your smartphone, then you can imagine the huge value of predictive text in the healthcare space, because now you can have sentences running, etc., and you're documenting on top of a template with a predictive text feature. You know, what's the value?
Wonderful, wonderful.
And just
Yes.
Kathy, and just to add, talking about jobs, what we see in our industry post COVID-19 is that this will give uh, an opportunity for many jobs in the area of digital transformation, for cybersecurity, to protect businesses, especially during the remote work strategies and on-demand technology. So, I mean, globally, it's the use of the technology, like Dr. Digger said, for electronic medical records and Donovan's mobile assistant technology. A lot of that revolves around core technologies like document management and content management technologies. And through the use of that technology, it enables what we keep saying, improve customer experience. And I can see that there's going to be a vast call for persons that are trained and experienced in these areas.
And these jobs pay better than regular jobs because they're technical. So for people that are watching that are thinking of getting retrained, this is a good time to do so.
Yeah, one more thing too. Let me just add to this,
Mhm.
when you had Rahming as well. Even in my space, when you look at mobile commerce and with COVID-19, everybody now is thinking about different ways in which you reach the customer. Well, for us, we can give you a virtual store. You now have to look at fulfillment jobs that need to be put in place. You now have to look at delivery jobs that need to be put in place. And so now when you look at, even for us, I mean, you look at individual door-to-door delivery drivers. I mean, a couple of months ago, we never really talking about that, but now you see that space is opening up. Now, when you see a lot more customers now go to online stores, a lot of them probably don't want to warehouse a lot of their goods. So now you got fulfillment stores that now have to fulfill those products for you as well, especially if you're shipping to other islands. That's the reason why places like Amazon and those kinds of facilities actually grew. Well, the same principle applies here as well. So you'll see different types of jobs, different types of skill sets that are needed. But this goes back to what was said earlier. As an individual, keep an open mind for skill development. And don't think that you're just pigeonholed into doing one thing. You always have to think about what's the next thing, what new skills can I develop? Because new jobs are coming.
Yeah, and it's the analog is never going away. It's you're always going to need that person-to-person experience, because ultimately it's about the customer experience. And we like talking to people. That's why we're on this show. That's why we gather. That's why, you know, it's still that element will never go away. So it's about technology is about empowering that element so that value can be created.
Correct. And one more thing too, who would imagine 20 years ago, you would have a job called a social media influencer?
That's true.
I mean, come on. There are people who literally make millions of dollars a year as social influencers. I mean, that's unbelievable to me, but that's their job.
I'm in the wrong field.
Exactly.
But anyway, so the last thing so we're good on time, but before we open it up to questions, so please, people at home, if you have any questions, start typing them in the webinar chat, and we'll try and get as many of them answered as possible. But the last thing that we would like to talk about is whenever you're an innovator, there's always friction with the outside world. And what I mean by friction is where you run up against regulations. Could you maybe talk about why, what are some of the challenges and where, because this is when I say friction, I don't mean it in a antagonistic kind of way, but working with regulators to improve the environment so you can add that value to the customer. Let's start with you, Dr. Digges. I know with medicine, there's a lot of rules. In all of our spaces, there's a lot of rules. And where do the rules, where can they be adjusted?
So in our space, it's really a big question about how we handle information. And we want to be very clear then on Data Protection Act, etc., so that as we move and handle data, we remain consistent with the requirements of the law. Sometimes the technology is ahead of legislation and regulation. You know, telemedicine, for example, is one example of that. And even when we look at the imminent introduction of chatbots, having an artificially intelligent software to communicate with patients who may be in isolation. It's a standard part, for example, of addictive treatment or depressive treatment, to be able at 1 o'clock in the morning to engage a chatbot. Well, you want to make sure that if you're ahead of the regulation or the legislation, that you have an opportunity to recommend on what that legislation should look like. And so one of the responsibilities that you have in an environment like the Bahamas, regardless of whether, you know, in the document space like Peter or the mobile space like Donovan, is you almost have to preempt the legislation. And you have to look at other regulated environments. And in preempting it, you need to make sure that whatever it is you're introducing is consistent, at least with the regulations and legislation in another place. Canada, UK, for example, US, these are common references. So, you know, resist the urge to rig stuff up in the Bahamas and spend a little more time, and it won't be regrettable that you spent the time making sure that whatever it is you're about to introduce that does not have an enabling legislation or regulation, that your introduction is at least at the standard or above the standard of the requirements in another acceptable jurisdiction.
Yeah, and it's important for people. The reason I understand this very well is I'm also in financial technology, and there's a lot of rules in financial technology. But my background comes from the aerospace industry, and as you know, with planes, if things are not in the right place, they fall out of the sky. So very, very, very regulated. But if you're an innovator out there, just understand that you have to work with your regulators hand in hand. You have to have a good relationship with them because it just makes your life a lot easier. Mr. Moxie, why don't you talk about you're in a very innovative space in the payments aspect. Why don't you talk a little bit about your experience there?
Yeah, definitely. The fintech space for us, again, we've been in this space for years. We filed our patents back maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. And I remember the first time we presented this to the central bank, the regulations that basically govern these mobile wallets, these payment platforms, didn't even exist. And so we were well ahead of it. And so we shared a lot of information with the regulators. We were involved as part of the Q&A in them developing the regulatory framework for this particular space. Everybody knew it was coming. And so the approach we took was a consultative approach. So it's not an approach where, you know, we were frustrated that the government wasn't, you know, where we were in terms of where we saw the market going, because technology innovators are always going to be out front. That's by and so what you want to make sure that you do, exactly, you want to make sure that you're not so far ahead the regulators, or you do your best to sort of bring them to where you are or have them see where you are. And as Dr. Dick said, when you look at all of what we do from a security standpoint, from a proprietary standpoint in terms of how we onboard customers, things of that nature, we want to make sure that we at least are very transparent and anticipating what the regulators would want from us. So we're providing that information to them because they're our partners. I mean, that's the way you operate legitimately. And so that's our approach to it. And I can tell you right now, the central bank has been extremely innovative. I think we're one of maybe 2 or 3 countries in the world that's approaching digitization of our currency. So when you look at how the central bank is thinking about blockchain technologies, thinking about currency digitization, thinking about cryptocurrency, they are pretty innovative in their thinking. And it's very, very, it's a good testament, I believe, to the leadership that's there right now as well. So we've had a great opportunity working with them. And so from our standpoint, we'll continue to innovate. We'll continue to work in a consultative manner with our regulators to make sure that everybody's on board, because we have a great opportunity here, right here in this Bahamas, to be one of the leaders in the world when it comes to fintech companies.
I believe that.
We really do. And so it's just a matter of getting everybody on board and aggressively pursuing the.
And if I may add something to that, I think that we're the good guys. The regulators don't. When you're trying to add value, you don't have to worry about people doing nonsense. Of course, they need to do their job to make sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, but you can't. There's a lot of cumbersome things that they can help by removing, so that we can really run. Because I
Right.
know there's a lot of really innovative, interesting things that are out there
Right.
that can add a lot of value and help a lot of people and a lot of businesses, and really gear us towards the 21st century.
That's correct. And one
So
of the things we have conversations with the regulators all the time is don't do things that stifle innovation. There's some young Bahamian somewhere in somebody's garage or back room thinking about that next generation solution.
That's
So you
right.
want to make sure that the rules that you put in place level the playing field. They don't stifle the innovation that is coming through. Because think about it, many of the things we use right now, imagine somebody like Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat. Imagine somebody told you there'll be an application where you can sell photographs all over the world and somebody's going to become a billionaire. 20
yeah,
years ago, people would say, well, you're stupid. You can send photo now through the mail. I mean, what are you talking about?
yeah,
These
because
are things that happen because certain drivers are there and innovators find ways in which they can create value. And so you want everything you do, you want to make sure you do not stifle innovation. You encourage that innovation, and then you find a way to grow and strengthen the economy.
yeah, because at the end of the day, we're all very intelligent people, um, but we can't see the value in everything. No one can. It doesn't matter who you are. And when you stifle innovation, you'll never have a next Instagram, as you say, because like you, um, I'm 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 29 years old, but I do remember a time of the Nokia phone, and if you were told to tell me that I could put a picture on that, I would have thought that was the dumbest thing in the world. And yet here it is, and here it exists, because that's just not within my vision of things. And so I want uh, I wanted to use this section to talk about how um, for us to get to the next level, um, we need help. We need help in getting there from our partners in the different areas and different aspects of the society. Um, so, let's take some questions. I
Well,
see. Oh, yeah,
that's
Bridgewater.
what I would like to add is when we look at some of the challenges in the environment, one of the things or question that always comes up is the use of document management legal? Is the use of electronic digital signatures legal? And yes, they are legal. All right, they are acceptable in our courts, and so sometimes we see that this is a an opportunity to provide for users to provide more document management and enterprise content management systems because they are not aware of these legal requirements that they can benefit from. And then on the other side, from the cybersecurity aspect of it, uh, what one of the requirements I think that we really need more of is to ensure to provide and to ensure the public and businesses that they are notified when businesses or there is a cybersecurity breach. When we not to hear about it a year later when somebody's probably going to court, but this information is vital to the public as well as the businesses so that either the data protection or the agency, so as soon as these things happen, uh, the public is notified so that they could address the weaknesses in their security or these aspects. I mean, we see the banks normally sending out a notification about the different aspects of phishing and emails that hackers are doing. But then when the breach happens, we're not aware of the breach, and so it's important that this information is provided to the general public so that they are aware that these things are happening and what measures that they can take to protect themselves and their businesses.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's the world is changing, and it's important that we understand that in order for us to um, take the next leap and jump into that, there's a lot of different players, and I think what we're looking for is more of a cooperative approach with all of the players in the ecosystem, not necessarily an antagonistic one. Um, Let me read this question. What should our kids be learning to be tech savvy at a career level? Should they be doing coding in primary school? Mr. Moxie, you want to I'm sure you have your bias towards that, but would you like to
Yeah,
answer that
yeah,
one?
definitely. I mean, there are two things here. I mean, the best thing that any child could have is really a fundamental education in terms of the basics. But however, the other thing that I would encourage every parent to do is allow that child to imagine, allow them to create, allow them to innovate. Because one of the things that sparks innovation is that creative mind. And so typically anything that brings out that creativity, whether you create software code, you're doing something that's new. Whether it's building something with their hands, it's doing something that's new. So to me, once somebody develops their skill set in terms of how to bring out the creative side in them, now whether that's them actually writing software code or building a new building or doing whatever it may be, that essentially adds value because again, they're now thinking innovatively. They're bringing out those skills that actually really harnesses the creativity inside of them rather than kind of put somebody in a box all the time. To me, that's not something that I would encourage. So once a child discovers their love of learning, and then more importantly, discovers how they learn. And again, we don't get into details of this, but you've got the auditory, the kinesthetic, you got all these different types of learning styles that people have. So as a parent, understand the kid's learning style, make sure that they know the basics, but also allow them to innovate and be creative. And then once you do that, you can learn anything.
And Dr. Diggis, expanding that, you are coming into technology from medicine, which is not a normal, is not a common path. Can you talk a little bit about how these skills enhance the other aspects of daily life, not just from a completely technology side, but from into it from something else?
To add to what's been said already, because I think it is an important question about how early education either connects to or matches what's probably going to be available as far as opportunities in the future. I think it's important, though, to look at traditional jobs and to see how they are changing. If you look at healthcare, you begin to see very easily how traditional jobs are changing. For example, we have what we call point of care testing, which means that a physician's office can essentially put a laboratory on a bench. Well, that has certain implications to jobs like medical technology. And what that means is that the typical or traditional medical technology job has been moved up because of technology. You look at eye testing. You can basically go into Walmart, Walgreens, Target, etc., and get your own eye tested and come up with glasses. So there are processes that are eroding traditional jobs. That then means that the way we educate has to match or connect to where and what these traditional professions now are starting to look like. Yes, the typical work functions would be gone, but the professions now take on an entirely different definition. So I think the matching of education then to the needs is going to be a very important thing to do to make sure that the value and the relevance of the education is sustained. The other part is the entrepreneurial space. And you have to um, put whatever systems of education, whatever legislation, regulations that we consider putting in place, try not to handcuff entrepreneurial spirit. And this was mentioned already, creativity, imagination, a good dose of traditional education, but layered now with the appreciation that all of these emerging technologies, and there are quite a number of them, present very important commercial opportunities for the entrepreneur. So you don't
Yes.
want to drag the entrepreneur kicking and screaming into traditional jobs when they actually become a part of what the future Bahamas economy starts to look like.
Yes, 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 because at the end of the day, it's the entrepreneurs who pay a large amount of taxes, and those taxes then go and pay for our roads and pay for our police force and our defense force and our civil service. And so we really need everyone in the whole ecosystem of society to do well for it to work. So um, any last words? Let's start with you, Mr. Bridgewater. Can you tell people where you can be reached?
Well, one of the last words that that I wanted to say was the ability to pivot and utilize innovative technology like enterprise content management for document management. Uh, with the upcoming hurricane season that starts within a few days, businesses would want to embrace technology like this for remote working strategies in the event of a crisis like the pandemic, to be able to make their businesses more resilient and their organizations in this new normal and this new economy.
Mr. Moxie, would you?
Yes,
Any
definitely
last
so.
words?
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, when you look at what COVID-19 and even Dorian has taught us is that you have to have a virtual presence in terms of doing business. So you just can't do brick and mortar all the time. And so that's a solution that we provide here at Mobile Assist. And so from our perspective, we certainly anticipated where we saw the world going. We didn't think that COVID would happen, or obviously the destruction with Dorian, but we recognize that every mom and pop, every small to medium-sized enterprise, brick and mortar is not going to cut it. You need to have a digital presence. And so that's why we built the platform. We built it in a way which makes it very, very easy for onboarding and allow customers or businesses to focus on their core competency. We'll do all the heavy lifting on the technology side. You go ahead, you push your business forward, you communicate to your customers, you complete the transaction, and we'll put the money directly in your bank account.
Yep.
And so obviously we're here at Mobile Assist to help in any way we can.
Dr. Diggis?
So yes, opportunity advantages those who are best prepared. And I think it's important that Bahamians pay a lot of attention to preparation. And preparation can be, reading as widely as you must read, paying a lot of attention to what's happening within your industry, looking at the emerging technologies and the way those emerging technologies now converge to create models of business and models of commercialization that are brand new. And it's important for us to embrace the newer technologies to survive what's going to be a wave in this new virtual economy. This was thrust upon us. I think the COVID-19 pandemic undoubtedly has transformed us all into this virtual living, virtual economy. And so take the opportunity of the fact that you do have the function in a virtual space and layer it with your ability to see where exactly should I take my job? How should I prepare myself so that I am the one to thrive in the next iteration of my job, my profession? Is there an entrepreneurial opportunity that arises out of this that I should pursue by embracing the available tools that sit in the full spectrum of the emerging technology? I would encourage Bahamians to embrace that. Don't be fearful of it. Embrace it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Dr. Charles Diggis, Peter Bridgewater, Donovan Moxie, thank you so much for participating in this webinar. We're grateful for all that you shared, your expertise, insights with us. Thank you to the audience. I saw some of the questions, they were a little specific. The final questions were a little user case. Please contact the experts individually to have those questions answered. I would like to thank our sponsors, the Central Bank of the Bahamas, Sun Oil, Focal, and Doctors Hospital, and this was presented by the TCL Group. My name is DRC Rahming Jr. from CTO of Arawak X, and I hope you guys enjoyed the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.